The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of my modest Los Angeles apartment, casting soft patterns on the wooden floor. I could hear the faint hum of traffic below, the distant echo of a city that never truly sleeps. My life was ordinary. A steady job at a small nonprofit, a circle of loyal friends, and a quiet rhythm that marked my days. I reached for my favorite mug, the one with a chipped edge but a perfectly comforting grip, and poured my morning coffee. The aroma wafted upward, a brief moment of solace in an otherwise predictable routine. Each morning, I would sit at the little table by the window, watching the world awaken. This was my ritual, a moment of peace before the demands of the day pulled me in every direction. But beneath the surface of my seemingly content life, there was a restlessness I couldn't quite name. It was like a whisper, barely audible but persistent, calling me to something deeper. I often dismissed it as stress or exhaustion, brushing it away like the dust that gathered on my bookshelf. Yet that morning, as the golden light spilled across my face, the whisper felt louder. Later at work, the usual tasks unfolded: emails, meetings, and polite smiles exchanged with colleagues. My life was full of small, steady motions, yet I couldn't shake the sense that something was missing. Even as I laughed at a joke or offered help to a coworker, there was a void, a question lingering in the background of my mind. Is this all there is? The day passed like so many others before it, unremarkable but somehow tinged with an odd anticipation. As the evening approached, I found myself gazing out of the office window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was ablaze with hues of red and orange, a breathtaking contrast to the chaos that would soon unfold. Little did I know, the patterns of my quiet, predictable life were about to be disrupted in a way I could never have imagined. If you're moved by stories that explore life's deeper questions, I invite you to join our community by subscribing to the channel and liking this video. Together, we'll uncover truths that connect us to something far greater. It started as a faint smell of smoke, barely perceptible through the crisp evening air. I was driving home, the familiar streets of Los Angeles illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights. The traffic was as relentless as ever, a sea of red brake lights stretching into the distance. I sighed, adjusting the radio in search of something to fill the silence. As I approached the final turn to my apartment complex, the scent of smoke grew stronger, mingling with the salty breeze from the nearby ocean. Something about it felt wrong, not the comforting scent of a distant campfire, but sharp, acrid, and invasive. I rolled down the window, and the truth struck me like a tidal wave. There was a wildfire nearby. The horizon was no longer a calm gradient of twilight hues. Instead, it was marred by a faint but growing glow, a fiery line that seemed impossibly close. My heart began to race as I fumbled for my phone to check the news. Reports flooded in of an out-of-control blaze, fueled by relentless winds and bone-dry terrain. Fear gripped me, but it wasn't just fear for the fire. It was something deeper, a foreboding that reached into my soul and shook me to my core. The whisper I had felt that morning was now a roar, demanding my attention in a way I couldn't ignore. As I turned into the parking lot, the glow in the distance cast eerie shadows over the buildings. The air felt heavy, charged with a strange energy. Something was coming, something beyond the flames. If this journey is resonating with you, I'd love for you to join our community. Subscribe to the channel and like this video so we can continue exploring these powerful stories together. The night was unnaturally still. Even as the distant flames licked the horizon, there was an eerie quietness that hung in the air, as though the city itself was holding its breath. I had barely slept, tossing and turning as I tried to silence the growing unease in my heart. The wildfire was all over the news, its path unpredictable and devastating. Yet, the fire wasn't the only thing haunting me. By morning, a haze had settled over the city. The sunlight filtered through a strange amber sky, painting everything in hues of gold and gray. It was beautiful and unsettling all at once. I decided to drive to a nearby park, hoping the fresh air might clear my head. As I walked, the world around me felt strangely muted. Birds didn't sing, and even the rustling of leaves seemed subdued. I sat on an old wooden bench under a sprawling oak tree, its branches reaching upward as though in prayer. Closing my eyes, I tried to focus on the stillness. And then it came, a silence so profound. It wasn't the absence of sound, but the presence of something greater. It wrapped around me, gentle yet overwhelming, as if the very air had shifted. I opened my eyes, and for a moment, it felt as though time had stopped. The haze seemed to part slightly, and I noticed a figure in the distance, standing at the edge of the park where the trees met the open sky. Their silhouette was calm, unmoving, and though I couldn't see their face, I felt an inexplicable pull toward them. I hesitated, my heart pounding. Something deep within whispered that this was no ordinary encounter, but I couldn't yet comprehend what lay ahead. As I rose from the bench, my steps toward the figure felt almost involuntary, as if some unseen force was guiding me. The air grew cooler with each step, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat of the wildfire looming in the distance. My heart pounded, not out of fear, but from the sheer weight of what I was experiencing. When I finally approached, the figure turned slowly, and I saw him. His face radiated a calmness I couldn't describe, as if every worry, every fear, and every question I had ever held was known and answered in his gaze. His presence felt like light itself, warm, yet powerful, as if it could pierce through the very essence of my soul. I wanted to speak, to ask who he was, but no words came. Instead, he smiled, a small yet profound gesture that seemed to carry an entire universe of meaning. He raised a hand, pointing toward the horizon where the wildfire raged. And then he spoke, not with words, but directly into my heart. "Do not be afraid. The flames are not the end." At that moment, the world around me seemed to dissolve. The park, the trees, the distant hum of the city, all faded into a radiant stillness. It was as though I had stepped into another realm, one where peace reigned and the chaos of the world could not reach. In this silence, I felt a deep assurance, a presence so full of love that it left no room for doubt. This was more than a vision. It was an invitation, a call to see beyond the destruction and into the eternal. But just as quickly as it began, the moment ended. The figure was gone, and I was back in the park, standing beneath the oak tree, the distant wildfire still glowing against the horizon. Yet nothing felt the same. Something within me had shifted, as if I had been awakened to a reality I could no longer ignore. As I stood there, rooted to the ground, the distant wildfire seemed to blur, its menacing glow replaced by a scene far more vivid and otherworldly. My eyes were open, yet what I saw felt like a vision, not of this world, but from a place far beyond it. I saw the city of Los Angeles, but not as it was now. Instead, it shimmered with a golden light, its streets and buildings transformed. The chaos of fire and destruction was gone, replaced by a peace so profound it was almost tangible. I could hear voices, not cries or shouts, but a harmonious song that filled the air. And then the voice returned, the same voice that had spoken to my heart in the park. "These flames are not punishment, but a refining fire. What is broken will be rebuilt. What is lost will be restored." The words were a balm to my spirit, and yet they carried a weight that pressed upon me. I saw people standing amidst the golden city, their faces radiant with joy. Many were holding hands, their heads bowed in prayer. It was a vision of hope, of redemption, of a city healed by something far greater than human effort. But the voice spoke again, this time with urgency. "Tell them, they must prepare their hearts. The fire within is what truly matters." As the vision faded, I found myself back in the park, the heavy haze of smoke still lingering. Yet, I was no longer afraid. The message was clear, and it was now mine to carry. If this message has touched your heart, I invite you to like this video and comment "meant" to receive a blessing. Let's continue spreading hope and faith together. The days that followed were surreal. The wildfire's relentless advance dominated the news, its destruction captured in endless loops of footage. But while the city was consumed with fear and uncertainty, I carried something far more profound within me, a sense of purpose ignited by the vision. Everywhere I turned, I saw people searching for answers. In coffee shops, in long lines at the grocery store, in the anxious whispers of neighbors. The chaos of the wildfire had stripped away their sense of control, leaving behind raw vulnerability. And it was in that vulnerability that I realized the magnitude of my task. The message I had been given wasn't just for me. It was for them, for everyone who felt lost or afraid, for those who had forgotten the fire within. I began writing down every word I could remember from the vision, every detail etched into my mind. The call to prepare hearts echoed louder with each passing moment, urging me to act. But how? I was just one person. The weight of the mission felt overwhelming at times, and doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. Could I truly make a difference? Yet every time I questioned myself, I felt that same radiant presence, the peace that had wrapped around me in the park, guiding me forward. I started small, sharing the vision with close friends, each conversation filled with both trepidation and hope. Some listened with open hearts, their eyes welling with tears as I spoke. Others dismissed it, their skepticism cutting like shards of glass. But I pressed on, trusting that the seeds I planted would take root in their own time. One evening, as I sat in my apartment staring at the notes scattered across my table, I felt the whisper again. This time, it was a nudge, gentle, yet insistent. There was more to be done, and this was only the beginning. The wildfire had become a backdrop to my days, its glowing embers lighting up the night sky like a distant reminder of the vision I had been given. The news reported evacuations, heroic rescues, and heartbreaking losses. Yet, amid the destruction, I began to notice something extraordinary. People were coming together. In shelters and community centers, strangers comforted one another. Volunteers handed out meals with warm smiles, and prayers rose like a chorus in the face of adversity. The flames, while devastating, had ignited something beautiful, an awakening of compassion and connection. It was then that I realized the true meaning of the message I had received. The fire within wasn't just about faith or hope, it was about action. It was about using the trials of this life to spark something greater, to light a path for others through the darkness. Inspired by this revelation, I began speaking more boldly. In small gatherings, at churches, and even through online posts, I shared the vision and the urgent call to prepare our hearts. The response was overwhelming. People opened up about their struggles, their fears, and their longings for a deeper connection to something greater than themselves. Through their stories, I saw the power of the divine at work, a quiet yet relentless force moving hearts and transforming lives. I no longer doubted my role in this. Each conversation, each prayer shared, was like adding a log to the fire, building a light that could not be extinguished. And still, the whisper persisted, urging me to go further, to reach more, to remind others that this refining fire wasn't a curse but a gift. Let's continue to grow together as a community of hope and faith. Subscribe to the channel and like this video to join us in spreading light in the midst of life's challenges. The wildfire eventually burned itself out, leaving behind a scarred landscape and countless stories of loss and resilience. But for me, the flames had ignited a transformation that could never be undone. My life was no longer defined by routine or quiet complacency. Instead, it was fueled by a divine purpose, a call to bring light where darkness threatened to consume. The vision had shown me the power of a heart set ablaze, not by fear, but by faith. I saw this fire spreading, not through destruction, but through love and action. People were rebuilding, not just their homes but their spirits, and I knew my mission was only beginning. Each day, I was reminded of the voice that had spoken to me in the park. Tell them. They must prepare their hearts. It wasn't just a command. It was a promise. A promise that no matter how wild the fires of life might seem, there is always hope, always light, always a path forward. As I walked through the charred remnants of the park where my journey had begun, I felt the presence once more, not in words, but in the quiet assurance that I was never alone. The same radiant peace that had embraced me during the vision now pulsed within, guiding me to keep sharing, to keep inspiring, and to remind others of the fire within. Thank you for being part of this journey. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to join our community by subscribing to the channel and liking this video. And don't stop here, your journey continues. Click on the video appearing on your screen now. It holds a message that could be truly life-changing.